Episode 1. You are the safe place you always looked for. You kept waiting for someone to come get you, someone to notice, to reach back, to say, you don't have to do this alone. But no one came, not in the way you needed, not with the language your ache was speaking, not with arms wide enough to carry all that you never said. So you learned to hold yourself, first awkwardly, then fiercely, then with the sacred tenderness of someone who finally understood. No one is coming, but I am still worth saving. And that was the beginning, not the moment you were rescued, but the moment you realized, I am my own rescue. You started building shelter inside your own chest, making room for the child you used to be, the one who waited by the window for a softness that never arrived. You lit candles in your memories, not to erase the darkness, but to say, this pain has been seen. And slowly, your body stopped flinching at kindness. Your voice began to tremble less. Your heart started believing that safety wasn't fantasy. It was something you could become. You, who once walked on eggshells, are now the floor others can rest their feet on. You, who once silenced your needs, are now the voice reminding others that their needs matter. You, who once begged to be chosen, have now chosen yourself, not out of rebellion, but out of holy remembrance. You are not the absence of trauma. You are the presence of healing. And no, it didn't come from books, or sermons, or strangers with perfect words. It came from the quiet nights. You cried yourself clean. From the mornings you got up, when you had no one cheering you on. From the way you learned to breathe through the ache, without asking the ache for permission. You have become what you always looked for. You are the gentle tone in a storm, the listening ear in a world that only shouts, the presence that does not flinch. When someone else begins to unravel, you are not just healed, you are healing. You are the warm room in a cold lineage. You are the soft place that did not exist before you made it. And one day, someone will exhale in your presence and not know why, but you will. You'll know it's because you've become the thing you were always searching for. You are the safe place now, and that is nothing less than holy. Episode 2. You healed in the dark, and now you're becoming someone's light. You didn't ask for this. You didn't wake up one day and say, let me become a healer. You just didn't want to hurt anymore. You just wanted to breathe without flinching, to feel without apologizing, to exist without explaining your existence. So you began in the dark, where no one clapped, where no one checked in, where healing looked less like peace and more like survival. You cried without witnesses. You forgave people who never asked. You buried versions of yourself no one had ever celebrated to begin with. And still, you kept going, because somewhere deep inside, a voice older than pain whispered, there is more than this. You were not born to break and disappear. So you stitched your soul together with thread made of hope. You lit match after match until the shadows began to recognize your name. And you healed, not loudly, not perfectly, but faithfully. And now, without even realizing it, your light is showing, not the kind that blinds, but the kind that calls people home, the kind that walks into a room and makes others feel seen, without ever having to ask, the kind that says, you're safe here, without needing words. You, who used to dim yourself to survive, are now illuminating the path for someone else, who's still trying to crawl out of the same dark you once lived in. They don't always tell you. They might not even know how to name it. But when they're around you, their breathing changes. Their guard lowers. Their soul whispers, I don't have pretend here. That's not luck. That's legacy. You became the answer to a prayer someone else hasn't spoken yet. Not because you're perfect, but because you are present. And that is rarer than you think. This isn't about being a savior. You're not here to fix anyone. You're here to become. And in your becoming, you radiate the permission for others to become too. You are not the light because you've never known darkness. You are the light because you made it out. You are the flicker that survived the storm. You are the glow born from the ashes. You are the holy contradiction. Soft but unbreakable. Wounded but wise. Still healing, but already healing others. Just by existing. So when you wonder if it was worth it, all the nights alone, all the chapters no one read with you, remember this. Someone is finding their way. Because you didn't give up when it was still dark. You are the proof. You are the path. You are the quiet light they didn't even know they were searching for. Episode 3. You became the love you were denied. They taught you how to survive, how to smile through pain, how to say I'm fine, with a voice that sounded convincing, even when your soul was screaming. But they never taught you love, not the real kind, not the kind that holds without hurting, not the kind that listens without waiting to respond, not the kind that says, you don't have to earn this. So you searched. You searched in friendships where you gave more than you received. You searched in lovers who adored your light, but recoiled from your shadows. You searched in family, hoping they wake up one day and finally see what you've always carried. But they didn't, not in the way you needed, not in the way that stayed. And so one day, without ceremony or witness, you made a decision. If no one will love me the way I need, then I will. And that was your first taste of freedom. It didn't come wrapped in grand gestures. It came in the small things, in how you spoke to yourself when you failed, in how you let yourself rest without guilt, in how you stopped chasing people who only love fragments of you. You began to love in full. You became the apology you never received. You became the protection you used to pray for. You became the warmth you used to only imagine. And no, it didn't come easily. There were days you doubted it, nights you cried, wondering if you were asking for too much, moments when your old wounds whispered, this is too hard, you're too hard to love. But you kept going, because somewhere deep inside, you knew love is not something I was born to beg for. It's something I was born to embody. And now, you are becoming it. Every time you choose compassion over criticism, every time you pause to comfort your own fear, every time you soften in a world that told you to harden, you are the love they didn't give you. You are the love they didn't know how to hold. You are the love that breaks the pattern and start a new story. A story where affection is not a transaction, where tenderness is not earned, where your presence is not a burden, but a blessing. And maybe, just maybe, someone else will step into your light and realize they, too, don't have to chase what they can create because of you, because you became what you were once denied. Episode 4. You were never too much. They just never had enough space for someone like you. You learned to shrink before you even knew what shrinking was, to laugh quieter, to feel less, to hide your tears in pillows and your dreams in silence, because somewhere along the way, someone made you believe that being fully you was just a little too loud for the room, too emotional, too intense, too honest, too deep, too alive. So you tried to become manageable, palatable, digestible. You cut yourself into smaller pieces just to fit inside spaces that were never built to hold your brilliance. And they applauded your effort. They called it maturity, obedience, respect. But what they really meant was, thank you for making us comfortable with your absence, because your presence, your whole undiluted, radiant presence, was a mirror too bright for eyes still hiding. But let me tell you something sacred. You were never too much. You were just misplaced. You are ocean, and they were still learning how to hold rain. You are symphony, and they only knew silence. You are wildfire and stardust and storm and sanctuary. Not too much, but more than they were ready for. And that's not your shame. That's their unpreparedness. Because people who've never touched their own depth will always be startled by yours. But the truth is, you were not sent here to be small. You were not sent to be tolerated. You were not sent to perform stillness, just so others could stay asleep. You were sent to shake the ground, to wake the waters, to remind the world what feeling looks like when it refuses to apologize, And yes, you may still walk into rooms where your laughter sounds too free, where your tears feel too raw, where your truth lands like thunder in a space that only knows whispers. But now, you don't shrink. Now, you know, if they don't have room for you, it means their ceilings were never meant to hold your sky. So you find new rooms, you build new tables, you stretch into spaces where your wholeness is not a threat, but a gift, because the right people won't ask you to tone it down. They'll lean in, they'll thank you, they'll say, "I've been waiting for someone like you to prove that I'm not too much either." And that's when you'll realize you weren't too much. You were just the first to arrive in a world that's finally learning how to make space for souls like yours. Episode 5. You don't owe anyone the unhealed version of you just because that's the one they recognize. They knew you when you were quiet, when your voice shook every time you spoke truth, when your boundaries were suggestions, not declarations, when you kept your pain polite and your needs invisible. They loved you like that. They understood you like that. They could manage you like that. But then you started healing, and healing made you louder, stronger, softer in ways they couldn't manipulate, sharper in ways they couldn't silence. You started saying no, without guilt, started choosing yourself, without explanation, started naming the things they'd hoped you'd keep buried. And now, they don't know what to do with you. They look at you and ask, "What happened to you?" As if healing were betrayal, as if becoming whole meant becoming wrong. But here's what they don't understand. You didn't change to hurt them. You changed to stop hurting yourself. And no, you're not going back. You don't owe anyone the version of you that tolerated pain just to keep peace. You don't owe them the shape you used to twist yourself into so they could stay comfortable. You don't owe them the silence they mistook for agreement, the people-pleasing they called kindness, the self-abandonment they rewarded as love. That version of you, the one who kept shrinking just to stay in a room, doesn't live here anymore. You have outgrown your apology. And anyone who only knew you in your unhealed state may not recognize you now. They may resist you, resent you, remind you of who you used to be, as if your evolution were a problem to fix, instead of a miracle to honor. But listen to me, beloved, you don't have to become small again just because someone else refuses to grow. You don't have to re-break yourself to make others feel less alone in their fracture. You don't have to dim your insight, your strength, your softness, your light, just to be familiar to those who only learn to love your wounds. You are not the villain for healing. You are not cold for setting boundaries. You are not distant for becoming discerning. You are becoming, and that is holy. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them misunderstand. Let them miss the version of you that needed their validation to survive, because now you are surviving without it. You are living. You are rising. You are loving yourself in ways that would have terrified the you that came before. And that is sacred rebellion. So keep going. You don't owe them your unhealed self. You owe yourself the future that your healing made possible. Episode 6. Healing didn't make you bitter. It made you boundaried. They say you changed, that you used to be more available, more agreeable, more easy to bend. They don't say that part out loud, but you feel it in their tone, in their distance, in the way they circle around the new you, as if you're a foreign language they never learned how to read. What they really mean is, I missed a version of you that didn't say no. But healing, true healing, doesn't just close wounds. It teaches you who should never be allowed near them again. And no, that doesn't mean you're bitter. That doesn't mean you're cold. That doesn't mean you've stopped loving. It means you've stopped bleeding for people who hand you knives wrapped in concern. It means you've stopped calling it loyalty when your soul is screaming, run. It means you now know not everyone deserves access to your softness, because healing doesn't just make you whole, it makes you wise. And wisdom has a new vocabulary. It says things like, that tone is not love. That silence is not peace. That apology without changed behavior is just manipulation. You still have love to give, maybe more than ever before. But now it's directed, protected, sacred. You no longer pour yourself out. For hands that never learned how to hold, you no longer open doors. To people who only come to rearrange your furniture and leave their mess behind. And yes, some will call you hard. Some will say you're distant. Some will wonder where the old you went. Let them miss the version of you who made herself small just to make them feel big. Let them mourn the access they once had, but never earned, because what you've built in the quiet, what you've grown in the dark, is too sacred to be undone. By guilt dressed as love. This is not a fortress. It's a garden with gates and timing and truth. And those who come to stay will come with hands that plant, not pluck. They will come with hearts that honor, not harvest. So no, healing didn't make you bitter. It made you clear. Clear on who you are. Clear on what you need. Clear on what you'll never allow again. Because love without boundaries isn't love. It's erasure. And you, beloved, you are not here to be erased. You are here to bloom. Fully, wildly, unapologetically. And anyone who cannot meet you in that bloom was never meant to hold your seed. Episode 7. You're allowed to outgrow those who kept you alive. They were there when no one else was. When the world felt too heavy and your heart too loud. When silence was your only language. And they listened anyway. They sat with you, fed you laughter when you forgot how to smile, held your hand when even your own skin felt foreign. They didn't fix you, but they stayed. And sometimes that's enough to keep someone breathing. So when the distance began, you tried to ignore it. Tried to tell yourself it was just a phase. That maybe you were the one changing too fast. Too much. Too far. Because how could it be possible that the ones who once saved you could no longer walk with you? But here's the thing no one wants to say out loud. Some people are medicine, only for the chapter you were dying in. And when you start to live, really live, you may realize they don't fit inside your healing. Not because they're bad, not because you're ungrateful, but because growth sometimes pulls us beyond the arms that once held us. You don't have to stay small to prove your loyalty. You don't have to dim your becoming just to protect the history you shared. What kept you alive may not know how to keep you free, and that's okay. You are allowed to outgrow the safety that taught you how to survive, but never taught you how to soar. You are allowed to feel the ache of gratitude and still choose distance. You are allowed to carry their kindness in your heart without carrying their presence into your future. This is not betrayal. This is evolution, because love is not always meant to last a lifetime. Sometimes it's meant to last long enough to get you to the next version of yourself. And now you are becoming someone with new dreams, new boundaries, new rhythms that no longer sync with the people who once breathed in time with your pain. It hurts, I know, but growth always costs something, and you're not leaving them behind. You're just choosing not to stay in a place you've already outgrown. Bless them, honor them, thank them for the chapter, but turn the page. You don't owe your future to the people who helped you survive the past. You only owe it to the version of you who believed there would be more than survival. And here you are, living the more. So keep walking, keep becoming, and know this, somewhere in the quiet, they are still rooting for you, even if they no longer recognize the person you've become. Episode 8. You are the one who broke the spell, and now you're teaching others to wake up too. They never called it a curse. They called it tradition, called it strength, called it, this is just how we are. They passed it down, like an heirloom no one questioned. Silence, dressed as dignity. Control, disguised as care. Wounds, renamed wisdom. And for a while, you wore it too. The mask, the code, the invisible agreement to never ask why. You played the role. You recited the lines. You made yourself smaller, softer, quieter, so the house wouldn't crack under the sound of your becoming. But something in you, some flicker of knowing, that refused to go out, started asking questions. You couldn't help it. You looked around and thought, there must be more than this. More than surviving. More than pretending. More than calling dysfunction normal, just because it's familiar. And that thought, that sacred interruption, was the beginning of the breaking. You stopped following rules that only existed to keep the pain protected. You said the things no one dared to say. You let yourself cry in front of people who were taught to swallow their tears whole. You loved out loud. You forgave without permission. You named the hurt and refused to pass it on. You broke the spell. The unspoken one, the ancient one, the one that made everyone believe that this cycle was all there would ever be. And now others are watching, listening, waking up. They hear your truth and feel their own stirring. They see your light and realize their shadows don't have a win. You are not just healing for yourself. You are holding up a mirror so others can remember who they were before they agreed to forget. You are giving language to pain that never had a name. You are teaching them that freedom is not betrayal. It's legacy. And yes, it's slow. And yes, sometimes lonely. But you are not alone, because every time you speak truth, you plant a seed in someone else's silence. And one day, they will grow into their own voice. And someone will ask them how they started healing. And they will whisper your name, not as a savior, but as a signal. You were the first to wake up. And now you are teaching others how to stay awake too. You are the gentle disruptor, the holy cycle breaker, the living proof that the story does not have to end in silence. You broke the spell, and now you bless the world with your wakefulness.